Thanks for listening to BYU-Idaho Radio. These are your evening headlines for Wednesday, the 13th of November, 2024. I'm Kaylin Wills. The Spori Art Gallery at BYU-Idaho has a new exhibit featuring the ceramic work of professors from a dozen different schools. Brandon Isle talked to a pair of the featured artists and has the story.
Shane Christensen and Brian Jensen are both educators. Christensen teaches at Utah Tech University in St. George and Jensen at Utah Valley University in Orem. They're also both ceramic artists and members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They're among 17 artists whose ceramic work is on display in a free exhibit at the Spori Art Gallery at BYU-Idaho. All of the artists are likewise members of the church, though the work is not inherently religious. Jensen says much of the work he's displaying he only recently made.
I think the work that I'm going to make next is going to be the best work I've ever made. It doesn't always work out that way, but I'm always kind of optimistic about the potential of whatever's next.
Today, Jensen and Christensen are in the ceramic studio at BYU-Idaho putting on a workshop for students. They're behind the wheel creating. I caught Christensen creating a thrown and altered piece he was making into an oval-shaped vase.
I'm setting it up so when I finish it, I could put a decal on it or something of that nature. It's kind of like almost like a canvas, a blank canvas for me.
Christensen says he took his first ceramics class in 1986. His favorite thing about ceramics is when people actually use what he makes.
For me, that's one of my big things is I want them to use my work. I want it to be functional. I want them to put those in their homes. I want them to use them and use them up.
Jensen's work is less about being user-friendly and more about the creativity. He says he worked as a production potter, making mugs and bowls, but now he explores different concepts and wants to make what he calls significant work that would show up in a museum.
I will be installing 100 ceramic pieces in Paris, so that feels pretty good right now.
Watching these masters work is fascinating. They can take the raw clay and within minutes have something recognizable. But the process doesn't end there. They have to make a glaze and bake their pieces in a kiln. That process can take days. For Jensen, it's the glaze work that gets him excited.
Work over in the gallery kind of shows I want glazes to run down the side and kind of like cascade around these cuts. And so I'm making work for glazes.
You can see their work on display at the Spori Art Gallery through the end of the semester. For BYU-Idaho Radio, I'm Brandon Isle.
The university's baroque ensemble is bringing Christmas to the Barrus Concert Hall tomorrow evening. Ella Ziegler has the story.
The BYU-Idaho Baroque Ensemble is going back in time to celebrate Christmas with its concert where students will perform Christmas concertos from 18th century Europe. The 15-student ensemble performs with violins, cellos, and lesser-known instruments like the harpsichord and the viola da gambas. Director Dr. Robert Tuller assures listeners that instruments are authentic to the Baroque style.
The instruments that the Baroque ensemble uses are exclusively patterned after instruments from that time period. So our violins differ from modern violins in several fittings. All of the instruments have a historic, or they're essentially meant to copy instruments from that time period, and as a result, they sound different as well.
Tuller looks forward to performing Christmas carols from the Baroque era.
During the Baroque era, it was very common for composers to write Christmas music. And the thing that made them specifically Christmas is that they had a very specific kind of sound with one of the movements, which was meant to evoke what they felt were shepherds and things like that, to kind of give people the feel of that night of the Annunciation of the shepherds watching their flock. Some of the pieces have melodies that are set by these composers that are definitely Christmas carols from that time period.
The concert is Thursday evening at 7:30 in the Barrus Concert Hall in the Snow Building and will be live streamed. Tuller will perform alongside his students, and he's proud of them for learning the difficult style of music.
I really find students that are really motivated to prepare and to really do their best. And Baroque Ensemble, because it's such a niche and such a narrow focus, it generally attracts students that really are motivated to find out something about it. And they have to get used to playing these early early style instruments, which are slightly different than their violins or cellos in their fittings. And then we just have to learn the style of music too, which is a little different than modern style in the way that they played.
You can purchase tickets at tickets.byui.edu. For BYU Idaho Radio, I'm Ella Ziegler.
A Colorado man will spend a week in jail for walking off the boardwalk into a thermal area in Yellowstone National Park. The Jackson Hole News and Guide reports 62-year-old Joseph Ater of Colorado Springs was sentenced for the violation on October 31st. Ater entered the protected area of Canary Spring in Mammoth Hot Springs in July. He was with co-defendant Celia Ater and 2 children. He pleaded guilty to destroying a mineral resource and was sentenced to 5 years of probation for that charge. He is also banned from Yellowstone National Park for those 5 years and has a $3,000 fine. A big thank you for making BYU-Idaho Radio a part of your evening routine. These have been your evening headlines for Wednesday, the 13th of November, 2024. We've got more great content for you anytime you want it. Just search for BYU-Idaho Radio on your favorite podcast app. You can also ask your smart speaker to play KBYI 94.3 FM. For BYU-Idaho Radio, I'm Kaylin Wills.